Hi, welcome to Crystal French Geckos. In today's video, I'm going to be redoing our female Barons Racer Beatrice's Bio-Active Terrarium. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can redo your Bio-Active and clean it, as well as how to set up a Bio-Active terrarium for a Barons Racer or small arboreal snake. Now let's get into the video. This is what our terrarium currently looks like. It has been going for over 10 years now and it is just very overgrown. The pothos in this tank, you can see the roots here are kind of choking out the other plants, and that's why we want to redo it. We're going to start by taking out all of our big centerpieces and big chunks of wood first. So we're going to unwrap the pothos vines from the wood and then take that wood out of the terrarium in order to get the plants out. After taking out one of our larger centerpieces of wood, this is what the plants underneath look like, and this is why we want to redo this terrarium, so that these plants are able to grow and be healthy. There are a lot of dead or yellowing leaves because the roots are just getting choked out in the soil, and we are going to fix that today. I also want to note that some of this pothos is going to need to be cut out of the wood in the terrarium, but I'm going to be cutting it below the node so that it can be propagated later on for other terrarium use. Pothos is an awesome plant to have in your terrariums because it can root directly into the back of your foam background. So I'm going to be leaving a lot of this plant that's already rooted into the canopy of our background. So I'm just going to take the roots of those plants, tie them up, and secure them loosely with a zip tie so that we can preserve that nice live foliage at the top and not have to rip it out. If you wanted to, you absolutely could take this plant out, but I like that it's already grown in there and it's not going to have to regrow. So I'm going to keep it here and I'm just going to secure it while we clean out the bottom of the tank, and then it will be replanted right back into the soil. Now that all of our plants and decorations are out of the way, it's time to take out that substrate layer. As usual, there is a mesh or carbon layer in between the hydro balls and the substrate to keep them separated. But as you can see here, all of this is dead root that has rooted through the carbon pad into the hydro balls, and that's why our plants aren't doing so great. So we're just going to roll that carbon pad out and dust off all of those hydro balls because we're going to be using those hydro balls later. If your carbon pad or carbon layer isn't as overgrown as this one, you can absolutely take out some of those roots or just shake it off and reuse it, but since this one is so grown into, I'm just going to put a brand new carbon layer into this tank to help our plants grow. Check out all of these roots. This is over 10 years of growth in one carbon layer. Now that our carbon and our substrate is out, I'm going to take out our hydro balls. Since the roots were so grown into every layer, they kind of separated them a little bit, so the substrate has been mixed with the hydro balls. I'm going to be reusing these hydro balls, so I'm just going to take them out, rinse them off, and then I will put them back in the tank. Once our hydro balls are out of the tank, I'm going to give it a quick wipe down and clean out, and then we will be back to rebuilding it. After rinsing our hydro balls off, I'm just going to dump those all right back into the tank once they're nice and clean, and then I'm going to spread them out into an even layer. There are a couple extra little root pieces in here, so I'm just going to take those out and continue spreading. Now it's time to put in our carbon layer. Here I am going to be using a large cut to fit filter pad. For this area, I'm going to pack it down, cut it to fit, and then it will be time to put on our substrate layer. For substrate in this tank, I'm using a mixture of coconut fiber and peat moss. This is the mixture that I like to use in most of my bioactive terrariums because it is good for the animal and it's also really good for the plants, and the plants love it. Because this tank is going to have a lot of plants and a lot of big plants in it, I'm going to add as much substrate to the terrarium as possible. So I'm going to fill it all the way up to that glass lip and then spread it out. And this is what our terrarium looks like after our bioactive layering is done. Our next step is going to be to add back in all of our large pieces of wood and centerpieces to the tank before adding any of the plants. When building for a front opening door tank, I always like to do a little glass door check, which is just opening and closing the doors to make sure that our wood or whatever decorations we're using fit in the tank. The first plants that I'm going to be planting into this terrarium are the ones that are already up in our canopy. I'm going to carefully cut those zip ties, unravel the plants, and then plant their roots at the base of the tank in the substrate layer. The next plants we are going to add back into the terrarium are the tillandsias, our little air plants. We're going to be adding those into both pieces of woods, just right into the crevices. We have 3 that we're adding in here. Our Barons Racer Beatrice really likes these plants, especially the larger ones, because she can just hang right on top of them in the canopy and she doesn't dent them or damage them too much, so they're a really safe, secure spot for her to hang out. Although she prefers drinking off the leaves of the plants when we mist, we are going to add in a water bowl for her just in case she wants a soak or a drink. We're going to do that now before we add in our ground plants. I'm going to add in the rest of our plants to the bottom of the tank now. Starting off with a couple different types of pothos, I'm going to do marbled queen pothos at the base of the branch. This is a variety that I really like, and it's going to give a color contrast to the jade green pothos that's already at the top of our canopy. I'm also going to take some of the large vines of the jade green pothos that we've taken out previously, and I'm going to train those vines right around that branch and plant them into the soil so that it has vines already happening, but those vines are still going to grow longer. I'm going to add in a Ficus decora ruby here. This is a plant that I really like, and it's going to look awesome in this terrarium when it gets a little bit bigger, and that pink is really going to stand out as a color contrast. I'm then going to add in a couple more assorted plants to the back of our terrarium, as well as a really nice Aglaonema silver bay. This is a plant that's really hardy,
It can do great in low light and highlight, and it's going to be great for our Barons Racer as a sturdier plant. Also adding in a couple pieces of Sansevieria, and then that is going to be all of our plants for now. Once all of our plants are in, we're going to give it a really good mist down to make sure that everything is set in place. To the bottom of our terrarium, I'm going to add a light layer of bark chips. This is going to be great for our isopods and springtails because it's going to give them shelter as well as food. Now that our last layer is done, I'm going to go through and water all of our plants and fill up our water dish. You want to make sure to water your plants pretty heavily before you put your animal in the tank so that they don't get knocked over. To the water bowl, I'm also going to add a little bit of Java moss, and then it's going to be time for our isopods and springtails. To this tank, I'm going to add some dairy cow isopods and tropical white springtails. And this is the final product of our terrarium. The last step is going to be to add our snake back in. This is Beatrice, our female Barons Racer. Let's see what she thinks.
Thank you for watching today's video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up down below. You can also subscribe to see more content like this. If you would like to see more of our geckos and our terrariums, as well as our Barons Racers, you can check them out on Instagram at Crystal French Geckos. If you have any questions about this bioactive or your own bioactive at home, you are welcome to leave them down in the comments section below. Thank you for watching.